Again, I am the director of the Forerunner. This is me down here, and one of these days I'm going to get a split screen application going, but for right now I'm just doing a screenshot using QuickTime. And this is an article I have that's coming up. It's called The Emerging Multipolar World, Rebuilding Christian Civilization. And this is not ready yet, but this is a work in progress. I'll be doing a video on this when we're done. And I also wanted to say that my last video I did was on Russia-Ukraine war maps, and got a lot of views, got a lot of good comments, and actually a couple of people donated. And I was surprised at that because I don't ask for donations usually on my videos, but if you want to, you can go here. We're a Christian organization, and I do books, articles, videos. We've been doing this for 30 years, and you can explore the site, see what we're about. If you're interested, that would be great. And like they say, no amount's too small. You could give $5. I'd be very happy about that. But that's just a little plug for the Forerunner. What I want to do is go through some war maps. I'm going to show you one that's pro-Ukrainian. It's done by a guy in Kyiv, Ukraine. And he does a very good job at trying to stay objective and just tell the truth. He's very honest. And even though he's very politically sided against Russia, says he makes no bones about it, he hates Russia. There's another guy who's Russian, a Russian guy living in the United States, I'm going to show you, and he does very good analysis as well. And then there's another American that I really am very impressed with, and he does a lot of things with maps. And I'll just go straight there and I'll show you these. First one is Denis Davila, I think his name is. Let's see if we can get there real quick. And here's some of my past videos. And this is, see if I'm pronouncing his name right here. Yeah, Denis Davidov. And he does very good analysis of the war. He, like for instance, he did one today. It was not a map video, but he talked about why Azov was evacuated from Mariupol. And he admits in there that Azov has a Nazi history. And not a lot of people that are pro-Ukrainian and pro-Western want to admit that, but he has said that, you know, I'm going to do an update on what's going on in Mariupol in a couple of days, and I'm going to go through the whole history of the Azov Nazis, because a lot of people ask me questions about that. Are there really Nazis in Ukraine? And the short and long answer of it is yes, there are. But we'll have to hear from him in a few days. So he does these very good...
hey guys, Amanda Rose here with
I have to turn this down.
Air cooler.
Of course, we have the inevitable ads on YouTube that you can't control. But okay, so he does these really good maps where he goes in and he interprets things according to the Ukraine narrative, but he's honest at least. And he does not think that what's going on in DONBASS is very good right now for Ukraine. The second guy, let's see, this is called Politics, Military and Economics, and this is the Russian man. He lives in the United States, but he has some very good analysis on what's going on. And he does an analysis here about what was going on in Kharkiv and so on. And has some good graphics. Alright. He did a little update on Popasna, and explaining how this was a very key thing. They basically have made it all the way to the Donetsk Oblast administrative line in recent days. So you don't really hear anything in the media right now about what's going on in it's called the Donetsk Basin, or Donbass for short. And the reason why you don't hear that much about it is because it's going very badly for Ukraine. So what the media is doing instead is they are focusing on Mariupol, and of course Mariupol, it was completely over today. The last Azov regiment and some other soldiers, they surrendered, and they're being taken away as POWs. So that's over, and so now we'll see what the media concentrates on. There are no Western reporters in this area. The Russian troops do not carry reporters embedded in their troops. They just don't do it. The only reporters that are covering the war are people that are working in conjunction with the Donetsk People's Republic. which is this area right here. There's one guy that I mentioned, Patrick Lancaster. I'll put his link there too. He's very good. And he, basically he does a very good job at getting right into the battle, that type of a thing. And then there are no American reporters on the scene either. So basically what you get from the Western media is you get what the Ukraine government tells you is happening. So it's not very accurate, okay? And then the final one that I think is the best one, this is the Russian man. I don't know his name, but he does a very good job at describing different things that are going on. The other one that's very, very good is called, let's see, New World Econ. Okay. And he does something I've never seen before with these maps. He uses the UA maps, and he just does a really good job with using the tools. And I don't know how to use the tools like he does, but he does a really good job of it. And then the other thing he does is he shows fire maps, and these are literally satellite photos from space. And the satellites are able to see areas where there are fires. This is for firefighters and so on. Now, during a war, you have cannons being shot, missiles being fired, and there's fire on the ground where these missiles hit. And so they'll pick up, so you can actually see where there's troop activity, because the Ukrainians and the Russians are not giving any of that information. And here he was trying to figure out what was going on with this Severodonetsk River. Here the Russians were trying to cross it, and they were getting different reports. Were they able to cross it? There are other reports that said that they were pushed back. There were a lot of tanks. And he came to the conclusion that they had taken this area. And he did it by just looking at the terrain and also at, pictures from drones versus Google Maps, right? He could see where from drones where Russian troops were. And then he also makes use of these fire maps as well to see where there have been battles going on. And so you can watch that. That's his part. I'll give you the links to all of these, okay? And then there are a couple of other maps that I've gone through before, but I just wanted to reiterate these again. This is called Deep State. And this is a Ukrainian map, and it shows the positions of the Russian troops. You notice that they're all pigs, all little Russian pigs. They don't like the Russians very much. And if you zoom out, you see this is areas where Russia has been that Ukraine has taken back, or Russians have withdrawn from, more accurately, and areas where Russian troops advance. So it's just interesting to compare this map to another map. This is from military land. This is a deployment map. They're basically the same. What's really cool about military land is that it gives you not only the Russian troop positions, but the Ukrainian troop positions. And this is actually, in Ukraine, it's a felony to share information about troop movements. But somehow these people are able to just either guess or figure out which, they don't know specifically where the troops are deployed. It's more like guesswork. So you can pretty much figure out who are these troops, what are their names. This is the 11th Defense Brigade. This is another brigade. This is a tank brigade. Then there are some battalions and so on. These little logos are battalions. These are volunteer. These are independent groups. There's the Donbass battalion. Remember we talked about the Azov battalion. People think that the Azov battalion are only on the Sea of Azov, but they're actually in other places as well. There's one right there. Here's Special Purpose Regiment Azov Kyiv. And these are just volunteer, these little icons. So in the beginning of Donbass, 2014, 8 years ago, the Ukrainian army isn't as big as it was today, so they formed they took these militia groups, which are like these radical, literally like the militia is in our country. It's these radical nationalist groups, and they basically, funded them and gave them, made them part of the National Guard, and they they fought the war against Donbass for the Ukrainians. And that was going on from 2014 onward. And then what had happened was, I'll go to the other map to show you this. But you can go and then you can look these up and research. And military land is great if you go to the main page of military land. It's basically just a site for military geeks. It gives you all kinds of. There are invasion summaries, which are basically just screenshots, and then there's maps. You can also learn about the Ukrainian forces, who the different forces are. There's information on the Azov regiment and so on. So you won't get this information in the media. This is all just independently compiled. People will tell you that you don't get any information about the size of these troops or anything like that, but you can see here and you can do your own research and figure it out. Okay. So last thing I want to show you is, we've looked at this map before, and this is, again, it's pretty much similar. But one thing I found out recently, oops, this always happens. One thing I found out recently that you can do is there's actually a little time, I'll show you where it is on here. There's a little time lapse, okay? And what you can do is you can go back to, you can go month by month, and you can look on, February 24th. This is the day that Russia invaded Ukraine. What did the map look like? Okay, and so you had immediate movement down into the Kyiv region, the Chernihiv region, Kharkiv, and a little bit of movement here in Lugansk. And then very quickly, the Russians shot out to this area here, which is called Zaporizhia Oblast, and towards the north, which is the Kherson Oblast. Okay, so they invaded from all different directions, from south, east, and north. And nobody knows what the Russian plan is. They've talked about different phases, but Russia does not share its plan with the media. Like, it doesn't say that this is what we're trying. They haven't really told anyone what they're trying to do in Ukraine. The Western media has the opinion that Vladimir Putin wants to occupy Ukraine, even though Putin has said repeatedly that they do not plan to do that. But they don't believe him. It might be for good reasons, but the fact of the matter is that what Russia has said from the beginning is that they wanted to liberate Donbass by and secure the status of Crimea as part of Russia, those two things, by demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine. So the first plan would have been denazification, which is basically fighting all of these Nazi battalions in the south. These are people from West Ukraine who hate Russians, they display Nazi flags, they wear Nazi insignia, and I'll do another video where I go more in depth on that. But just if you want to, if you don't believe that, and if you believe the Western media where they say that Ukraine doesn't have a Nazi problem, what you should do is just research it. Go online and type in Azov Battalion and go back to 2015, 2016. You'll see all these articles describing this huge problem that Ukraine had with these groups that basically, and they wanted to overthrow the Ukraine government as well. They didn't like the guy that was in there because they thought he was too soft on Russians. They didn't want the ceasefire in this area that Poroshenko negotiated, and so they were planned on taking back this area and then overthrowing Poroshenko. So a lot of people don't believe that. Okay, so this is as of the 15th, and you see that they had made more. This was April 15th. This was kind of like the height. Oops, I don't want to do that. This was the height of the war, where they had surrounded Kiev. They had troops on the east side of Kiev, the north, and the west. And by this time, they'd shot way over to Mariupol, and they were there was a lot of fierce fighting here, and they were trying to surround Mariupol. Okay, so that was by the 15th of April. If we go down to the 15th of March, I'm sorry. if we go down to another month, jump another month to April 15th, by that time they'd taken all of this land here and they had withdrawn from the north. They declared that, since this is what Mariupol looked like. Let's go back a little bit too, just so you can see the progress here. I described in my last video how Ukraine had actually been preparing for this war for over a year. They were planning on invading DONBASS again, the parts that were protected by the Minsk Accords, the Minsk Agreements, excuse me. And they also were planning on taking back all of that. And there's also rumored that they were planning on taking Crimea as well. So this is what happened from the very beginning. The Russians, they shot all the way across very quickly, but these radical battalions, they had fortified inside of the cities. They'd dug themselves into trenches. They'd secured buildings that had fallout shelters from the time of the Soviet Union. And it took the Russians a long time to get them out of these shelters, these sheltered areas. So, let's kind of like go week by week here. This is what happened in Mariupol. This is like March 6th. Okay, they were starting to advance. We go down a couple weeks later. And fierce fighting. The radical militias all they do is train. They're very committed. They're very nationalistic, and they were going to fight right to the death. And today what happened was that they got orders to surrender, which basically told them no help was coming, because they had been told that help was coming, and which was a lie. But that's what they believed, and so they were holding out for help, and they were appealing to the Pope. They were appealing to Elon Musk, please help us. A lot of really sad and crazy stuff. And so what the Russians had to do is they had to go block by block and flush them out of places where they were fortified. And there were a lot of civilians being used as human shields. And so finally they got them down to this little several square miles, which was just the steel plant. And so as of today, let's see if they updated this yet. Go to May. So at a certain point, the Russian forces just decided, I guess Putin himself gave the command, don't attack Azovstal anymore. Don't, withdraw from the area, send the troops north. They're not going anywhere. They're just holed up there. So by tomorrow, what we'll see is that this whole area will be red. Okay. So nobody knows. Like I said in my last video, I gave this couple other maps where I said that probably what the Russians will do is that they'll hold elections in Zaporizhzhia once they get all of that territory, if they get all that territory. And then they basically have all of Kherson, except for little skirmishes along the border. They'll secure the area, and they'll have this land bridge going from the Donbass all the way to Crimea. And I also said that there's a possibility that they could take Kharkiv and several of these other regions and basically carve out the whole eastern region of Ukraine from the Dnieper River south to this city right here, which is called Dnipro, and then straight across this administrative line to a pro-Russian sympathetic area, which is called Transnistria. It's not part of Russia, but it's one of these independent republics. It's very similar to Lugansk and Donetsk, and also Abkhazia and South Ossetia. And what I encourage people to do is just do your own research, use the maps, and draw your own conclusions.